And ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Wednesday stream of the Paranormal Portal. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Mr. Longbeard.
Hello again.
How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. It's been an interesting week for me so far, so that's awesome, though. It's been a good week.
It's been a good week. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? That's the news. And moving on to weather. No, I'm just kidding. Here we are. It looks like everything's going well. I don't know. I'm sure we're still going to find little bugs and things that need tweaking here as we go, but I think we're on the right path, and I think we're looking pretty solid here, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Paranormal Portal live stream, so we got that going for us. And for those of you that were here last night, thanks for coming on and helping me test it out and getting things sorted, I guess, as best we can. We certainly, like I said, we certainly have more to do, and we're certainly going to continue to work on the production value of the show, but at least now we have less to worry about, I think, than ever before, which is really important. So here we are, moving on. Another Wednesday edition of the Paranormal Portal here on YouTube, and we're absolutely thrilled you guys are here with us. Thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for helping us burn away the night. And thanks for making us feel special. I feel special. You, Don? How you doing?
I always feel special.
You are special, Don.
I am
Don't
special.
ever let anybody tell you different.
And I don't let you. I mean anyone.
Anyone else other than me.
Anyone else. Gotcha.
And did Ken make it in?
Yeah, Ken's here. Yep.
Okay, Ken, I'm not going to answer you on Facebook then because you're here. Yes, we're here. And so there's nothing else to ask. Nothing else I can say, at least right now. So welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, I mean, what do you think, Don? It looks like you did check out the stream last night as well, right?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah. Of course, we've got more lighting tonight, so it looks good on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think the volume sounds good. I thought it sounded good last night.
And ladies and gentlemen, I have my Paranormal Portal lightsaber here. So.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got that going for us. Looks really cool on the camera. I am your father. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not your father. Whoever you are. No, I'm just kidding. God, I thought for sure my phone was vibrating in my pocket, just on cue, as if for a live stream. But no, it was just those ghost things that you feel in your leg. I don't know if this happens to any of you all out there, but I always wear my phone in my cargo pants. I have like tons of pairs of cargo pants because you can never just have too many pockets. I'm sorry. And I always carry my phone in the same place. And then, like, I won't have my phone in my pocket, and I'll swear I hear it vibrating or feel it vibrating.
Yeah, me too.
That happens to you too?
Yep, all the time.
I don't know what that is. I'm not sure. I don't think it's paranormal, but I think it's weird anyway. It certainly shocks me every time it happens. Like, ooh, hey, nope, no phone. Don't know what it means. I could just be losing it, ladies and gentlemen, which wouldn't surprise me even a little. But I don't know.
Jimmy Jean's with us tonight.
Jimmy Jean, welcome to the stream, brother. Jimmy Jean, welcome to the stream.
Hey.
That was kind of clever. Thank
You're
you.
a Longfellow.
Thank you. Well, I'm not even going to touch that. I'll leave that lay right there.
Better you touch it than I do.
You just needed to die, Don. It just needed to die. It was dying gracefully until you killed it. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, this is supposed to be a family show, and we'll try to.
It is.
A lot of families are dysfunctional.
Here's an example.
Welcome to our dysfunctional family, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Paranormal Portal. But we are here to do the live stream as per usual on Wednesday nights, and I feel really good. I feel really good because I think everything's stable. I think the computer's doing its job. It's keeping us plugged in. Jesus, that freaking flame is just dancing.
Yeah.
That's hardly a candle. That's more like a torch.
Sarah says that I'm louder than you are, but then again, I have a pretty loud voice.
How you doing now? Are you louder now? Try it.
She says,
I can't hear you at all. That's perfect. No.
I see how you are. Oh, yeah, you're doing that again.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the power of the mutiny.
Mute.
I can pull a mutiny anytime I want.
Pixie says she's a proud member of this dysfunctional family.
Absolutely. We're all a little dysfunctional, Pixie. It's not just you. And hopefully you're in good company. So how you guys doing out there? We both sound great. Woo! That's a big improvement from last night. I don't know what happened. Ken said it was a bit better when I muted you.
Thanks.
Ken, I love you. Love you guys. So we are just going to do our Wednesday thing. And, oh, you can't really see the candle there, can you? Let's get that into view.
You can see the flames flickering in the bottom corner there.
Yeah, I know. It's like an orb dancing around there, but
exactly.
it's actually a candle, ladies and gentlemen. This is not.
Check out that orb.
I'm trying to see what. Yeah, that looks cool right there, right?
Yeah, there you go.
That looks.
It
good,
actually
right?
looks like a flame. Yeah.
It should. That's what it is. It's not one of those cheap battery deals. It's the real deal. So I hope you guys are doing great, and we are going to get into some stories of spooky mayhem as usual. And oh, I heard my minion. I don't know how I can hear it. It's like you get that daddy hearing, that parent hearing. You know what I'm talking about, Don?
Yes, I do.
Where, people can just hear their kids. It's like, and I can just hear them. I can hear them down there just squeaking and raising havoc. But anyway, we're going to get into some stories here. And these are some spooky encounters with the paranormal. And didn't really zero in on a topics per se. I think that these will primarily be ghost stories, though, because that's what we love here in the portal.
And what he's doing is he's blaming me because I was synthesizer shopping.
Yeah, Don is like tunnel vision. He has very tunnel vision.
It's called focus.
Very acute tunnel vision. Like he sees something, and it's like he'd be the kid looking at the picture in the toy catalog for a month before the holidays.
I'm the kid staring at the mannequins outside the store.
Wow. Yes, you are. Hi, I think I know you.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on?
Snuck in.
I don't know. Is he on screen?
Not yet.
Not yet? You're hiding.
Oh, there he is.
There's his head. Hey.
What's up, buddy?
This probably isn't a good time for that. He's just like his daddy. He loves looking at himself. Okay, can I do something about that sound? Can I do something about that? Hold on. There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's a much better volume for this. No. Can I do that? Okay. We're probably not going to have time to play alphabet game right now, buddy. But thank you. I appreciate you bringing it up. It's a big mess. That's right. And I've been cleaning up here, haven't I? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. This is an impromptu visit. This is kind of like remember Mr. Rogers, where people just stop by?
That's Mr. Green Jeans.
Why did they name the mailman Mr. McFeely? That's just creepy, isn't it? There's the letter, right? You know the guy, right?
Oh yeah.
There's letter Y. I got Y put away. Don, why don't you take it away for a second here? Well,
sure. Absolutely. Well, let's go here. So
I don't know if you want to jump right into a story or not, but I'm probably going to mute myself here while I.
Well, that's all right, Brent. If you gotta step away, or whatever that may be.
I've got kid tangled in cords here.
It's got the kid tango going on.
All right. What are we doing? No, we're not blowing the candle off.
So anyhow, nice to see everybody tonight. Oh, there's Dawn. Okay, yeah, we're really loading up in the chat room today. That's awesome. All right, so as usual, let's do this. Okay, yeah, let's jump into a story. This is the Greenbrier ghost murder victim helps convict her husband. And these are kind of old ones, but they're interesting ones. This one says, on January 23rd, 1897, 23-year-old Zona Hester Shue died under mysterious circumstances at her home in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. Strangely, by the time the doctors arrived, Zona's husband, Aramis Trout Shue, had already moved her body from the downstairs area to the bed and dressed her. Although throughout the next few days, Trout displayed some bizarre behavior over his wife's passing. But since the death was initially believed to be heart failure, no one suspected foul play. However, weeks after Zona was laid to rest, her mother, Mary Jane Hester, paid a visit to the local prosecutor to ask for her daughter's body to be exhumed. The decision was motivated by alleged visits from Zona's ghost. Mary Jane, the mother, claimed that Zona, the daughter, ghost had visited her over the course of 4 nights and revealed that Trout was an abusive husband who had broke her neck by strangling her in a fit of rage. The authorities agreed to Mary Jane's request to exhume her daughter. An autopsy revealed that Zona's neck had been broken. Trout was arrested and charged with his wife's murder, even though there was no evidence against him, even though the evidence against him was very circumstantial. When Mary Jane was called to the witness stand at the trial, Trout's defense attorney challenged the story about her supposed encounter with the Greenbrier ghost. However, Mary Jane never wavered from the original story, and her testimony proved so convincing and believable that the jury could not disregard it. In the end, they would find Mr. Trout Shue guilty. He was given a life sentence at Moundsville Penitentiary, where he died 3 years later. So there you go. Tattletale ghosts. You gotta love them. Ghosts, ghosts, ghosts.
Keep going. Keep going. You're doing great. What else you got there, Don? In here.
Nope, I'm good to go. Keep going. We'll keep going. Hold on. The ghost of James L. Chaffin. Ghost helps his family find his missing will. In 1921, James L. Chaffin, a farmer from Mockville, North Carolina, died after a fall. He left behind a wife and 4 sons. James's will, which had been written out many years beforehand, left the family farm to his 3rd son, Marshall. However, legal problems arose the following year when Marshall unexpectedly died. Since there was no provisions for the rest of the Chaffin family in the will, they wound up losing their estate to Marshall's widow. However, in 1925, James's 2nd son, James Pinckney Chaffin, shocked everyone by filing a lawsuit to challenge the will's validity. Even more shocking was the fact that the lawsuit was brought on by an alleged interaction with a ghost. James Jr. claimed that he had been having a series of dreams where he was visited by his father's spirit. One night, James Sr. suddenly appeared wearing his old overcoat and told his son that the new will could be found on the inside pocket. When James Jr. retrieved his father's overcoat, he discovered that inside the pocket was covered by a new lining. Hidden in the pocket was a note that read, "Read the 27th chapter of Genesis in my daddy's old Bible." James Jr. soon tracked down his grandfather's old Bible and was shocked to discover that a new will was actually hidden inside, right next to the 27th chapter of Genesis. It had been written by James Sr. in 1919. James Sr. now wanted his estate to be divided equally among his 4 children, but the trial experts seemed to agree that the handwriting on the will didn't actually belong to James L. Chaffin. Even Marshall's widow became convinced that the will was genuine, so she agreed to the settlement that returned control of the estate to the Chaffins. Wow. You know, there's a lot of people I can think of in my past that could have used a visit from a helpful ghost. Especially with something like the wills or how the estates are divided and such like that. Oh, well. But there's a lot of chatty dead people.
There's a lot of chatty live people, too, that are
true.
under 3 feet tall and have a love for being on the air.
That is true. He does like being up here when you're on there.
I know he forgot his phone, so I imagine there's going to be a return trip pretty quick. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry about that. I don't know. You just can't account for anything here on the Paranormal Portal, and you never know what's coming through the portal, rather. And
what steps into?
Yeah, whatever steps into the portal. I don't know what's going on. What have I missed?
Not much. I've read 2 stories.
Good job. How'd it go?
Well, it seems to be fine.
Okay.
Pixie's laughing at me as usual.
Well, thank you guys. I don't know. What do? We just got to roll with it. It's real life, ladies and gentlemen, here on the portal. All right, so I'm going to read you one, and I'm not even sure what you read, Don. I had the alphabet going on in my ear there for a minute.
That's okay. The alphabet's good.
It is. It's your friend. It's part of higher learning or lower learning or all the learning. I don't know. You'd swear online that a lot of people need some help with it still. But anyway, this is stories of people having paranormal encounters. And it says, not sure if this is considered paranormal, but when I get fevers as a child, I would always, in my fugue and pain-infused state, hear a man counting in a very deep voice. He would count from 1 and up. And as the numbers got larger, the voice gets louder and more intense. It started to get less frequent as I grew older, and now I do not experience it anymore. I've brushed it aside as a reoccurring nightmare until only recently I've learned that my sister would experience the exact same thing when she was younger as well. It's not the scariest thing, but it does send shivers down my spine trying to comprehend this. Very wild. There's still letters under my toes. So, I don't know. I know that he's going to need that phone pretty quick, but I'll just keep going here. The next one is a few years ago at one night at around 3 a.m. My wife and I were sleeping, and I feel myself slowly waking up from a really deep sleep. My eyes started lifting up, and as soon as they focused on the lamp on my dresser, it slid off and shattered to the floor. My wife and I quickly sat up and looked at each other, horrified at the startling noise. We agreed we would clean it up in the morning and went back to sleep. The next morning when we woke up, the lamp was at the foot of the bed, around 5 feet from where it fell, completely intact and not broken at all. We're still trying to make sense of it. That sounds familiar, like I think I've read that before. I don't know if I have. But again, these stories tend to get repeated in more than one place. So I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, if that's one you've heard me share with you before. These collaborative lists tend to get siphoned off of each other quite a bit online, so it's hard to know when there's repeats and when there's not. And it's a new computer, so I don't have my normal I visited this page link like I would on my laptop. So I'm just giving it to you now for whatever it's worth. Do you want to take another one, Don?
Sure, I can absolutely do that.
I want to look ahead here and just see if these are some more that I've read.
The Montrose Ghost. Dead pilot to returns to clear his name. On the morning of May 27, 1913, Lieutenant Desmond Arthur, an Irish-born pilot in the Royal Flying Corps, took off in his BE-2 biplane for a seemingly routine training flight at Montrose Airfield in Scotland. However, the right wing of the aircraft suddenly snapped off in mid-flight, and Arthur was killed in the subsequent crash. Initially, it was believed that the tragedy was caused by a faulty repair job on the plane. However, 3 years later, an official government investigation would determine that Arthur himself was at fault for the crash. Many of Arthur's fellow airmen were unhappy about this black mark on his record. But it wasn't long before the Montrose Airfield would be plagued by a series of unexplained supernatural events. In August 1916, personnel stationed at Montrose started having visions of what appeared to be a ghostly apparition of a pilot. Some of the witnesses recognized the mysterious figure and believed it to be the ghost of Desmond Arthur. The sightings became so widespread that terrified airmen started abandoning their posts and requesting transfers from Montrose. Finally, C.G. Gray, the editor of the flying magazine The Aeroplane, decided to push forward a theory that Arthur had returned to haunt his former airfield in response to the government's investigation that smeared his name. Gray successfully lobbied for an investigation into the crash to be reopened. This time the verdict was that Desmond Arthur was not responsible. After Arthur's name was cleared, the Montrose ghost would disappear, save for one last sighting where he appeared to be smiling.
Wow. Very creepy.
Yes.
Huh.
I wonder why that's hyperlinked. Huh.
Probably a virus.
Don't click it.
Don't click it, John. Bad things happen to those who
do
click. Oh, you know. Never a dull moment here. So I found a different story, a different series of stories. This is 19 super creepy brushes with the paranormal. And let's start these. And a lot of these are very short. But I like these short ones because they're thought-provoking. They make you think, and then they're done. You don't have to spend a weekend reading it to get to the good parts. So,
sorry, I take a weekend to read it.
That's all right. I mean, longer stories are fine, but you know what I'm saying. It just takes so long to get to them, and it's like, oh, you got to keep the inflections up, and while you get through the story, and it's like, oh, guess who's back? Yeah, I have his phone ready. He's got YouTube Kids on there, and it's great because he's got all kinds of fun videos you can watch. Not Daddy Show, though. Not yet. You got to earn the portal. So, for 2 years, my mom had a recurring nightmare in which the mirror at the end of the room facing my parents' bed would turn transparent, and there would be a man standing behind it. When redecorating, they removed the mirror from the wall to find a hole behind it with a small empty room leading to nowhere.
Ooh.
Oh, that's all kinds of creepy. That's just weird.
Oh, I saw this really cool thing on Facebook today about a room behind a mirror, but the guy built it for his gun collection, so that's different.
Oh yeah, that's a bit different.
But it was cool.
It is cool. I love those old houses that have the and you can actually still get them. You can have people come in and create little secret rooms for you, and little bookshelves that'll open into a hidden room and stuff. I was like, oh, that is epic. I'd like to do that. Right at the top of the stairs. Just create a bookshelf that you have to move to get up to the studio.
You gotta pull the paranormal book out, and it releases the latch, and
And any other books that you pull turn the stairs into a slide, and you go back down.
There you go. Yeah.
The voice from the back seat is the next one. Got lost with girlfriend at night in Waco, Texas. Roads were deserted, no people, no cars. Then saw one lone person standing on the corner as I made a turn. I heard a friendly male voice in the vehicle, as if sitting in the back seat, say to me, "You're going the wrong way." I noticed I was, indeed, going the wrong way on a one-way street, so I did a U-turn. The road took me directly back to the main highway. Asked my girlfriend a bit later if she heard the voice too, and she burst into tears because she had been so freaked out by it, she thought she was going insane or something. Yeah, that would be enough.
Do it. Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll be enough, but at least it was good advice. It wasn't like, keep going down that road. It was like, hey, you're going the wrong way. Dead end. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, this is creepy. The little girl down the well.
Oh my.
When my wife was 6 years old, she fell into a well. She couldn't climb her way out and started to cry. She heard a girl's voice tell her not to worry and directed her to a group of stones that were jutting out far enough for her to grab a hold. The voice told her to climb out, and she did. When she got out, there was nobody around, and she ran home, told the story to her mother, only to find out that a little girl had drowned in that same well many years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, but again, good advice. I like these. I mean, if you're gonna run into a ghost, why not be like they're at least trying to do something right for you, They're not trying to suck your soul out, and they're not trying to possess your body. They're just like, hey,
I'd like to get one that cleans toilets.
I need one that vacuums. No, but it is. I mean, it's cool that if these people are going to have these paranormal encounters, that they're at least doing something productive.
Yeah, definitely.
So, just a thought.
Definitely.
Just a thought. So that's the little girl down the well. The baby doll being dragged on a string.
Oh.
Wow, these are creepy, though. Oh, my God. These just... He's calling me to come down.
Come down, Dad. Come down.
Oh, my God. You know what? I'm going to take a break and bring him his phone. We're going to take a break here for just a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, but I got to get this sorted. So hold on. We'll be right back.
Hold on. Transition.
Don't go away. good timing, wasn't it? Oof. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're situated for now. I do apologize. I'm not always making the plans up for the evening in the paranormal portal household, but I think we got it situated now. So I apologize for the interruptions and such. It's always an adventure. So the next story on the list that we were reading is the baby doll being dragged on a string.
Yes.
What was that thump?
It sounded like the minion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's always an adventure. I'm gonna Velcro that kid to a wall before next week. He's just so busy. All right, the baby doll being dragged on a string. My friend was driving without his glasses on in the middle of the backcountry, Maine, one night. For those who have never been, you drive hours without seeing civilization, just trees and trees. He was in a daze when he saw something up ahead in the street. He stopped, couldn't quite make it out. It was moving, but moving very slowly. He got curious, moved real close to it. Wow. Is he up here?
Yes, he is now.
He is up here.
Is. Here he comes.
Wow.
Hey, dude.
What? Welcome to the babysitting portion of the paranormal portal. Did you have another plan?
Shh.
Where is he?
He's right there behind you.
He's behind me. Okay. All right. So they saw something moving slowly. He stopped and couldn't quite make it out. It was moving, but moving very slowly. He got curious.
Okay, bud.
Okay, have fun. I love you. He loves me too. I'll just finish that for him. He's busy kid. He got real curious, moved real close to it on his truck. Is that a baby? Sure enough, it was a baby. He gets out of the truck, just stunned. Surely this baby is abandoned. Walks over there, goes to pick it up. It's a baby doll being dragged by slowly by a string, is what it says. He got out of there as fast as he could. Yeah, what was pulling a baby doll? That's weird.
Yeah, it just says pulled by a string, but pulled by what's always a good question.
Pulled
at that
by
point.
whom or what? Yeah,
just the air. It's just
that's very strange.
It's like a snake tied around a baby doll.
Right.
You know, slithering away.
It's like bait.
Yes.
Eesh, creepy. And that story probably would have been much creepier if I'd been able to read it through in its entirety in one shot. But it came with free intermissions, so you got that going for you, ladies and gentlemen. I honest to God, it's the one job that I love the most in my life is being a parent. I love it. It means the world to me, but they definitely have their own plan for the way things should go. And they don't really understand people have other things going on. It's like, they just have this moment of, I need this now. And everything else just needs to go away until I get what I need right now. So it's pretty amazing being a parent, and many of you out there are parents, and I'm sure you understand, but it's just so funny. It really is. It's just it's awesome, and I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world, but they are. I think they're God's way to test your metal sometimes.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
But I wouldn't change it for the world. It's it's an amazing thing.
Children have that funny way of finding all the buttons you thought were hidden.
Yeah.
There's a little cover on this button. You can't touch it. Bull.
And a kid with a button. It's not just, it does that. It's this. What does it do now?
What does it do if I hit it 4 times in a row?
Yeah.
Oh, let's try it once. Oh, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, he's doing he's like doing Morse code on my button. It's like Yeah, well, I don't know. I had a vision for this night being so professional and so smooth and refined, and then life happens, and that's okay. I hope you guys understand. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's hard enough to find a rhythm doing a show anyway, but then it's like having a juggling clown come through when you're reading poetry. It's like
or a mime.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. But it makes life so interesting and so unique. And like I said, I love it. It's just it's the most important thing in my world. But
Keeps
anyway,
everything moving.
yeah, and I've got 3 amazing kids, so I mean, this isn't my first rodeo, but it's definitely the most unique rodeo. All right, you come into my house, I come into your house. Ooh, ooh.
Gosh.
A couple of years ago, I was out on a run with my dog. Over the fields behind my house, we came across this old abandoned mansion. It hadn't been lived in for the past at least 15, maybe 20 years. The rich guy who owned it had went bankrupt, and now the bank owned the house. I decided I'd take a look through the house. It was pretty cool, run down, but it looked like someone had left in a hurry. I decided to head home. Once I got back, I go for a shower. Afterwards, I walk into the kitchen and start to make a sandwich. I bring it over to the table, and there it is, a Post-it note. You come into my house, I come into your house. Naturally, I freaked out, got my dog, and got out of the house. Phoned my parents, who then passed it on to the police. They said it was likely squatters and some guy had followed me home, but it was nothing to worry about. That was the last we heard about it. No way I'm ever going back into that house.
Likely squatters while you're in the shower. How did that? Yeah. Oh my.
Yeah, and they just decided to leave a Post-it note for her, or him. I don't know if it was a her or him. It doesn't really say, but
No.
I don't know. I have the feeling it's a her.
I think it's a her as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody followed her home to leave a Post-it note like, "Hey, you should lock your door."
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, the ghost of Beejeebuh. It's BEE-JEEBUH. Beejeebuh, I guess.
Okay.
As kids, my cousin had an imaginary friend. He called him Beejeebuh. We never got around to how it was actually spelled, but I'm spelling it in the way he pronounced it. He claimed that his Beejeebuh was a monster, but he was a nice monster, and he would occasionally tell him to do things. After a few weeks of this, he was told to never talk to Beejeebuh again. Apparently, this name is strikingly close to Beelzebub, so his mother, who is fairly religious, put a stop to that.
Oh boy.
Now the creepy part. I was recently telling my girlfriend this story. It was dusk, and we were in the car, parked, but the car was on. As I told this story, the internal lights on the car came on, as if the door was open, and both of our phones simultaneously went haywire. She forced me to stop talking about it after that, and to never mention it again. Yeah, that's probably a good indicator.
Yeah, Beejeebuh.
I mean, if it is, I don't know how you would probably spell that correctly, but I would like to look up that name and see if it is indeed some kind of a demonic name. I don't know. Could be, though. They say if you name them, that calls them to you. I don't know if that's true either, but
I always sit here saying the names all the time. You just did it in that story.
I know. So if that's the case, I'm going to find out, I guess.
Now we know why this is the only haunted paranormal show in the world.
Yeah, exactly. There might be a reason, because I read stories and then question it later. I don't know. Live and learn. The mystery of the burning matches. Wow. That is a mystery, Scooby. Huh? Ray Reggie? Yeah, it's like they're supposed to burn. That's what matches are for. My dad used to live in a house and had some weird things happen. Curtains moving, things not being where you left them, remotes ending up in places that were impossible to reach. But never anything violent or harmful. One week, things started to feel different. The whole house started to feel uneasy, which was a new feeling despite the weird activity. One day, my stepmom and I were alone in the house and started to smell some burning matches, which is an incredibly distinct smell. We walk around trying to find out where it was coming from, and she eventually finds the source in the pantry. It was a pile of burnt matches about 10 inches wide and 3 high.
Wow.
That's a lot of matches. We were alone in the house and we're watching a movie together. No way it was either one of us, and the kitchen was just off to the backside of the living room, so we would have heard if someone was there. Nothing nearly that profound happened again, but you can bet that we were out of there when the lease was up a month later. Good call. That's one where you don't want to extend your lease. That's a done. That's a nope. Would you like to extend your lease? Nope.
Nope. That's a nopes for me, thanks.
Yep, a bucket of nopes on that one. The 8-inch spider on the dining room chair. Oh. When I was a kid, we always called them wolf spiders, or that's what I was told they were called growing up in Minnesota. And I remember being over at the neighbor's house, and he had a white German Shepherd, and it was a pretty dog, really nice dog. And in his dog bowl of water, it was like a bucket, like an ice cream bucket.
Right.
And I looked down into his water, and there, sitting on the surface, I didn't know, I thought it would drown, was this huge spider that was bigger than my hand, or at least the size of my hand. So it's like, I was a teenager at the time, so it wasn't much smaller than it is now. And I was like, oh my God, look at the size of that spider. It must have drowned in the water. I reach my hand down. The thing springs off my hand and jumps away and runs. It's like the size of a mouse with long legs. It's just like, oh my God, I was freaked out. So when I hear 8-inch spider, it automatically brings me back to that moment where quite soon after I had to scrape my underwear. And I was fine. No, I'm just kidding. It didn't really like terrorize me, but I was definitely not expecting that to be a live spider. But it was absolutely enormous. I couldn't believe how big it was. So let's see what this story is. A few years ago, I was in the kitchen with my sister and my mom, and I saw this huge spider. This thing was at least 8 inches in diameter, just sitting on the back of one of the dining room chairs. I freaked the hell out and pointed it out to my mom and sister. Neither of them saw the spider. I turned back to the spider, and it's right in front of me. Can't you see this? I asked, as I'm looking at this spider. They both say there is no spider there, and that my joke isn't funny. The whole incident still bothers me.
That's nice.
Wow, that's creepy. That's terrible. That would be horrible to see something and to try to point it out to people and they can't see it. Wow, that's very bizarre. Do you know, I was just reflecting as I was reading that about there are apparently in South America, there are stories of spiders that are enormous. And I'm not talking like tarantula or the Goliath spiders. I'm talking about 10 times larger, like the size of dogs, running around. And they're clearly nobody's found them, but, or if they have, they haven't brought any into to the museums.
Specimens.
There's been no specimens gathered that I'm aware of, but could you imagine a spider that big? I mean, there are, about a small diminutive sized spider would attack a grasshopper or whatever. I mean, they just don't care. They're just like, oh, that's moving, I'm going to eat it. Now, if you ran into a spider the size of a dog, like a German Shepherd size, what would you do? Did you see that video somebody had posted online where they dressed their dog up like the spider, and then they hung all that fake webbing in that tunnel, and then they'd stick their dog after him? Oh my God! And people are just like totally freaked. That's the kind of thing that you can't just say, "Oh, it was just a joke and it's over." Those people are going to be traumatized for a while from something like that.
Wow, actually, that says while the Goliath bird eater is definitely the world's largest spider by weight, it is the giant's huntsman's, which is Ken just mentioned the huntsman's in the chat.
Okay.
A spider that takes the award for being the largest by diameter. The lanky arachnids have a leg span of up to 12 inches or 30 centimeters. As some people describe it, it's the size of a dinner plate.
Oh,
Can you imagine that? Like this big? That'd be creepy as
that
anything.
would be creepy. I'm just looking.
Oh my God.
Because I got the chat up over here. I can see. Saw a spider the other day. It was the most beautiful bright orange.
Yeah, because it was on fire.
That's what they say you got to do, Ken. You paint them with flames. Wow.
Pixie said she she burns them up with a special flamethrower. I said, yeah, a can of hairspray.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It'll work every time.
A little Aquanet and a lighter, and you've got a flamethrower. No, I'm just, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not advocating homemade flamethrowers.
I will.
Although I can tell you, when you have a huge wasp nest,
Oh yeah,
and you don't have any wasp spray, and you've got to knock it down, that very configuration is a good way to
conflagration.
to change their mind about coming and stinging you 15 times.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's my cousin and I did that once. We were mowing, and I don't know, I'm just unreflective right here, ladies and gentlemen. You're gonna have to deal with all my anecdotes as well. My cousin and I was out in Michigan visiting him, and we had to mow the yard, and they had this huge ranch they lived on, and they had an outbuilding, and it was a small one-story outbuilding. It was just like I think it maybe had been a hen house at one time, but was being used as a shop. But they had like the serious ball of like paper wasp nest on the side of this thing, and I think he ran into it, or he ended up mowing under it, and then realized they were there after he got peppered about 20 times. And so he and I went inside, and we were teenagers at this time, and we got all like bundled up in 5 layers of everything and wrapping things around our head. We both had the hairspray with the lighters and gloves, and we took care of it, but it was an adventure. That was we definitely weren't exterminators, and we probably wouldn't be hired on by anybody, but
not using flame.
But yeah, they were some mad wasps, I'll tell you that.
Oh, no doubt.
So this one is called The Stranger Behind the Tinted Glass.
Ooh.
When I was 16, I was home alone and suddenly felt the need to check the doors were locked. Check that the doors were locked? Okay. Like urgently. I walked quickly to the front door and turned the lock just as a guy appeared on the other side and tried to open it. It didn't open because I had locked it a millisecond earlier. Wow.
Milliseconds. Wow.
That's awesome. I could see him because our door was partially tinted glass. I'm not sure if he saw me. He immediately turned around and walked away. Who the hell was he? Why? He was early to mid-20s, really well dressed, black suit. He didn't try to knock. He just tried to open the door. Never saw anyone like him again.
Wow, yeah.
Wow, that's
called premonition.
Yeah, I wonder when that happened. You know, if it was like from the 70s, when wasn't like the Son of Sam was always well dressed, and you know what I mean though?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a creepy serial killer kind of move there, just to like go up to a door and turn it. Wow. Well, I'm glad that they had that premonition to lock it.
No kidding.
That's brilliant. Oh, what the hell? This one's called The Dancing Pants.
Nice.
It's crazy, but funny enough that people always think I'm making it up, despite being able to cross-reference with 2 other people with the exact same story. When I was a kid, my brother and I used to visit our cousins 3 hours away. One time our parents went out and left my brother and I with my 2 cousins. The older cousin had something else to do, and so the 3 of us, probably 10 to 13 years old, were on our own. For one reason or another, we were in my aunt and uncle's bedroom when I looked into the living room and, clear as day, saw a pair of my uncle's disembodied dress slacks dancing away in the living room. Obviously, I freaked the hell out and called my cousin and brother over, and all 3 of us witnessed it. There's no way it could have been a prank, because the legs were moving and dancing and everything. There was too much dexterity for them to be controlled by a prankster. To this day, all 3 of us can collaborate this story. My cousin, who is now a missionary, even swears it happened, despite the fact that it's far outside the realm of her beliefs. When we talk about it, she just takes a deep breath and says, "Yeah, I remember those dancing pants." Now that's wild. I don't see why that would seem far-fetched. I certainly, it's not a whole lot different than, whipping a plate off a table, other than, they apparently had a pretty sophisticated motion to them, which would require a lot more energy than a standard haunting.
Yeah,
but
just moving something.
With a linear motion on something is apparently a great feat for a spirit. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I've heard and what people are hypothesizing. But to animate a pair of pants and make them dance around, would be an incredibly arduous task, I would imagine. So, not sure. The figure that glided towards us. I remember when I was a kid in Mexico, or when I was in Mexico, rather, I just threw the kid part in there.
just some random kid word got in there.
I'm just totally, I'm improv here, ladies and gentlemen. When I was in Mexico with some of my cousins, we started a bonfire outside an abandoned warehouse. Reaching nightfall, we got the fire going and we settled down around it. We talked and laughed and whatnot. It wasn't until one of my cousins noticed an odd human-like figure standing in a distance. This person or thing was wearing a blackened, dirty white gown with their hair all over their face looking down. What did you call that from the Ring series?
Well, yeah, Samara is the name
yeah.
of the girl in that movie. Yeah.
Now this is
the American version, by the way.
Well, this is Spanish.
Yeah.
But usually that comes out of Japanese lore.
Japanese, yeah.
Or Asian lore. We all stood up and got behind the oldest cousin, two of my cousins and me, and I remember asking in Spanish who they were and what they wanted. The fact that it wasn't responding got us uneasy. Shortly afterwards, it started to glide towards us.
Nice.
My blood shot cold seeing that. We were in disbelief and frozen. Once we snapped back, we started running and screaming back to the ranch. No one knows what that really was, nor did return there when night fell. Yeah, apparently they didn't go back. I'll just summarize that. So I don't know. Apparently that visage is maybe not isolated to the Asian lore. I don't know.
No, wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, yeah, I guess not. I don't know. The ghost on the gun range. Wow.
Mm.
I did IT work for a gun range that rented out guns for you to use on the range. As you might expect, there were quite a few squirrely, don't tread on me types in there at any given time, so I always paid close attention to what was going on in the shop and range. There were windows into the range so you could see who was shooting. One day I noticed a lady in there loading up, who I hadn't seen come in. I rebuked myself for lack of vigilance and went about my business. It happened again a couple of weeks later, and I resolved to keep an eye on the range, but she got out of there without me noticing somehow. This pattern repeated several times over the following weeks until finally I heard about the lady that had come in a few years back, rented a gun, walked into the range, and shot herself in the head.
Oh, my.
I noped right out of that gig.
No doubt. Wow.
Wow, that's horrible. Wow. Then she even rented it. She's like,
What did they do with that pistol afterwards?
Yeah. I'm betting they didn't rent it anymore.
This is a haunted handgun.
Yeah, that's horrible. That would definitely leave an imprint on something.
Yeah, the range apparently.
Yeah, well, yeah, clearly. Clearly it's it's at least residual haunting, but it may be intelligent as well. I don't know. The crashing green curtains is next. This happened to my uncle before he married my aunt and became part of our family. He lived with his previous wife and 2 kids in a house for most of their lives, and his wife suddenly became terminally ill and died a few months later.
Wow.
Throughout her entire life, she was a very kind person, but she hated the green curtains in their living room more than anything. She would apologize about them when guests came over, talked about how much she hated them whenever they went to home improvement stores, and tried to keep them out of view as much as possible. I'm not sure why she or my uncle never got around to changing them. Could have been financial problems, distractions, couldn't find ones they liked, etc., but they never did. The green curtains remained. The night she died, my uncle and his kids spent the night with her in the hospital and returned home in the morning. They said after being in the house in silence for about an hour, those green curtains came crashing to the ground. My uncle and cousins didn't know whether to be absolutely terrified or laugh. They immediately threw them in the garbage and later picked out new ones they thought she would like. I have no doubt that she took it upon herself to finally get rid of those curtains. That's funny.
Okay.
Well,
Right. You know, after years and years and years of complaining about the green curtains,
Yeah.
it takes a death to take care of them.
Yeah. She couldn't do it in life, so
just
she
can't.
finished it in the afterlife.
We can't do this anymore.
That just sounds like a movie plot.
I know. And then Scarlett O'Hara comes out in the green curtains.
Yeah, exactly. Very strange. Huh. Wow. This one's called The Clawfoot Tubs in the Texas Morgue.
Nice.
Yikes. It's a little bit long, but it's okay. I'll read through this.
I just looked up to see how much time we had.
Well, we go as much as we want.
Right, it's not Saturday, right?
Yeah, we had a minion party here at the beginning of the show, so we've actually haven't been at it that long.
Well, no, just I think over an hour now.
Yeah,
57 minutes or so.
Not really, because
Well,
we, well, you know, I mean, he was here and he was entertaining us with his antics in the alphabet. So this one is the Clawfoot Tubs of the Texas Morgue. I moved to Huntsville about 5 years ago. Here in Texas, Huntsville holds the state prison, and so it's creepy just for that. Alongside the prison is a very old house remain. Oh, very, very long. What? Alongside the prison, very, very old houses remain. I dated this guy for about a year, and he lived in the row of old houses right off campus. He lived at one end of the row in a house built in the 20s. I'm sorry. I'm just fumbling with these words for some reason.
Yeah, you gotta love it.
Every day, as I walk down to his house, I pass a gorgeous white house built in the 1800s. Tall, 3 stories, and sits on top of a hill. It's torn up and it has no windows or doors, but I always found it fascinating and haunting at the same time. Excuse me. I hoped one day the boarded up doors would be open so I could go and explore. Well, one day I got my chance. The board was cracked open and we went right in. Creeping in from room to room, everything was boards and nails and completely deserted and falling apart. But creepy enough, the only thing that remained in any of the rooms were the clawfoot tubs, and there were 2 downstairs and they were beautiful. I almost fell through a couple of holes, but I managed to make it up to the 3rd floor. Again, a clawfoot tub sat deserted in the hallway. I made my way around and landed in the final of the 15 rooms, the top left corner. It looked out onto the street we had entered, and it had a staircase that led to the attic. As soon as I walked into the space, mind you, there are no doors, I knew I had to leave. I can't explain it, but it became unusually cold for the Texas weather. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I felt like I needed to run, and I did. Right back down the hall, passing all the creepy tubs, and out the door. I didn't return. Fast forward about 3 weeks, I worked for the campus hotel, and we were selling a Huntsville ghost hunting book, which included houses from around the town. I worked the late 3 to 11 p.m. shift, and no one was around, so I read it happily until I came across a story about the White House. According to the previous owner, the house used to be a morgue. The clawfoot tubs that remained in the house were the original tubs they used to drain the dead bodies in before they were prepared for funerals. And it said sometimes people see a figure of a man who is supposed to be the original owner of the windowless window up on the hill, or up on that left corner room, looking out onto the street. Nope. Here's they have links to the actual book if you wanted to read it, but I don't. I'm good. I'm good with what I've read so far, ladies and gentlemen. Don, did you want to read another one?
Oh, sure.
Take it away, John. I'm going to read some chat.
Nice. All right, so let's see here. Okay, read about the pilot, Desmond Arthur. There we go. So this is called The Cock Lane Ghost Haunting Fabricated to Accuse an Innocent. Well, you know what? Let's skip that one. Oh, no, actually, let's go ahead and read it. There have been numerous recorded cases of alleged hauntings that turned out to be complete hoaxes, but a few of them created the sensationalism. But a few of them created the sensationalism of the Cock Lane ghost. In 1759, William Kent and his spouse, Fanny, moved into a house on Cock Lane, a narrow alley in the Smithfield section of London. 6 months later, the couple moved out after a dispute over money. The landlord, Richard Parsons, refused to pay back a loan William had made to him. Shortly afterwards, Fanny passed away from smallpox. In January of 1762, William was shocked to read an article about himself in the Public Ledger. The article implied that William had murdered Fanny. The person responsible for the story was Richard Parsons, who claimed that the house on Cock Lane was now haunted by Fanny's ghost. Fanny allegedly appeared before Parson, telling him she did not die of smallpox and that her husband had poisoned her with arsenic. William was invited to his former home for a seance in which a clergyman named John Moore would summon Fanny's spirit. When asked a series of questions, the ghost responded with a series of knocks that painted William as a murderer. The Cock Lane ghost became such a sensational story that large crowds would flock to the location. Seances became a frequent occurrence. Eventually, the whole story was largely considered a fraud when Parsons' young daughter, Elizabeth, was caught rapping on boards to simulate the ghostly knocking sounds. In order to clear his name, William Kent filed a lawsuit charging Parsons, Reverend Moore, and Parsons' wife, and a servant with the conspiracy. They were given a short prison sentence and forced to pay restitution to William. Well, there you go. Huh.
Wow. There you have it.
Do.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Gotta love those old ones, though.
You do. I think they're pretty cool.
You know, and that's when you know, seances and things like that were really becoming popular. And so, you know, there were all kinds of stories, you know, from Houdini on down of these snake oil salesmen of the seance realm, you know,
Yeah.
and so.
Well, there were plenty of charlatans.
Well, charlatans, definitely. And there were plenty of supposed, you know, valid ones, too, you know. So it's just interesting to read how some of them pulled off some of the chicanery they did.
Yeah, well, you know, I hear you. And unfortunately, there's just as many people pulling
Still today.
pulling that crap today. If you look on YouTube, you'll see so many people spoofing and trying to scam people into believing in their fabrications, and it really is frustrating because, you know, as I've stated before, there's so many people doing the long game, playing the long game, and they're putting in their hours and their time and their resources into researching a phenomenon they very much believe in, and then you got some clown on his laptop, you know, building fake scenes, and you know, it's just frustrating because it denigrates the whole area of study and research. And there are people that put in so much time and energy and resources into it because they're passionate about it and they believe in it and they want to bring that knowledge into the mainstream. But there's so many idiots out there creating, you know, just outright fabrications. So it's frustrating, but, you know, c'est la vie. So I guess that times really haven't changed much.
No, not
it's
at all.
Just they
got more technologically advanced.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier to create fakes than it ever used to be. So broken glass and crying spirits. A few years ago, I lived in a little cottage-style house that was built in the 1920s. It was a charming house, and I loved it. But weird things happened in that house. First thing we noticed was that we couldn't place anything made of glass on the counters in the kitchen and turn our backs because the jar would fall to the ground almost instantly and shatter. I tried putting the jars on the backside of the countertop against the wall, but they would still somehow fall off and break as soon as I left the room. From the first month we moved in, I would hear vomiting noises, coughing, and sobbing coming from the bathroom. My roommate had stomach issues that year, and no one would answer when I asked if everything was okay. So I just assumed she had the pukies and wanted to be left alone, the pukies. This went on weekly for about 10 months, and one day my roommate and I were hanging out, and she asked if I was feeling okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And says, I heard you throwing up earlier this morning, and I was worried about you. Why were you crying? I thought that was you. We were the only ones home that entire week. We realized that we thought the other person had been sick and crying in the bathroom for the entire year.
Wow.
But it was neither of us. We never figured out what the sounds were coming from. Wow. You know, it sounds like somebody got poisoned.
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like. I mean,
Poisoned
honestly,
and died in there. Yeah.
right? Most poisonings are incredibly horrible ways to go. I mean, it's not the old, James Bond cyanide pill. You bite it, you have a little foam in your mouth, and you drop
Die.
over. They're usually horribly painful deaths of horrible
Pain
and
agony.
vomiting and anguish. And, just imagine, and I realize this sounds really gross, and I'm sorry, but imagine the worst diarrhea you've ever had. And I'm here to tell you, some of the episodes I've had, literally made me want to crawl in a hole. It was just like you get that weird aching, cramping going on, and it's just like then suddenly it's like, ooh, I gotta go, and then you deal with it. But imagine that pain for 12 hours, and as your body slowly dies, it's a horrible, horrible thing. So I certainly would never look at that as a way out. The glowing blue paperboy. When I was 9 or 10, some of my family was in town, so naturally I had to give up on my bed and sleep on the living room couch. At some point during the night, I woke abruptly, only to find myself staring at a small boy. The kid was probably a little younger than I was at the time, but the problem was I could see through him. He looked like what I like to describe as an early 1900s paperboy, complete with the hat and socks up to his knees. He was glowing a bluish color, and he didn't say anything to me, nor I to him. I just kind of laid there looking at him, and then he was gone. I never saw anything like that again. Not in my house, not ever.
That's probably good. Hey.
Just somebody stopping by quick.
Just stopping in. Just wanted you to see a blue little boy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what that would mean. I'm not sure, but certainly a profound experience nonetheless. And it's that coming out of sleep phase that seems to inspire so many of the people to have visions.
Oh, yeah.
And it also is tough because the naysayers can say, well, you were still in your REM state or still dreaming. And,
right.
It can be so easily explained away. But I'm here. Jesus, you type loud.
Sorry.
You okay over there?
Pixie's talking about food again.
Okay. All right. But it's like blap, 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 blap in my ear. So anyway, I just think that I have no idea what I was saying anymore. So I'm going to continue reading. The mystery figure in the photo. I was sitting on the couch with a friend of mine, and my mom leaves to go to the store. We're hanging out and doing nothing in particular, and my friend falls asleep sitting up. So I take a picture with my new camera phone and show it to him. Ha ha ha, you fell asleep. What a doofus. Something to that effect. 2 weeks later, I'm going through my pictures and I'm looking at it, and I realize that someone is in the other room just 10 feet away. Even weirder is that this person has the same posture and stuff as my mom. Same haircut, short and spiky, and whatever the thing was very dark and facing the camera because the eyes caught my flash like a cat's eyes, just two brightish dots. The figure was in the brightest room in the house, so there was no reason it should have been so shadowy. I showed my friend the picture, who knows my mom, and I don't say anything to him except, who is that in the dining room? And the very typical of my friend, he sarcastically says, your mom? My God, don't you know your own mother when you see her? Gee, remember she wasn't home when I took this picture. And he says, yeah, you're right. I didn't push it further because I know he's a little superstitious and junk, and he seems a little nervous. So I looked at the pic, constantly trying to figure out, and then one day it just disappeared.
Huh.
The photo, I imagine, is what he means, but yeah very strange. You should have spread it around, should have sent it around. The stranger who knew where I lived. You doing okay, brother?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Don't you a little sleepy tonight?
I'm always a little sleepy.
That's all right. When I was 12, I was on vacation with my parents, and I left the room to head to the pool by myself. On the elevator ride down to the pool, a man entered the elevator. He didn't look at me. He just said the name of the town. He just said the name of the town and state I lived in. South Attleboro, Massachusetts, without looking at me. It was about 1,000 miles from the town he spoke. I, being young and a little naive, said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" Silence. Until the ground floor, he just said, "I guess you sort of look like it." He was probably 50, wore sunglasses indoors, looked ready for golf. I told my parents, and they wouldn't let me go anywhere alone the rest of the vacation. Don't think I ever saw him again. I was not wearing any clothing that gave away my hometown, and I was wearing a Duke Blue Devils basketball hat and a Jordan Bulls jersey. Very interesting. So that guy probably wasn't a normal guy is what I'm thinking. I don't know. The Demon Masks from Ghana. One summer, my brother went to Ghana and came back with a bunch of souvenirs. He went back to school and left them all with my parents. My parents used to live in a 2-story bungalow where my brother and I had bedrooms in the basement directly underneath theirs. One night around 2 a.m., I woke to hear heavy footsteps right above me. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep because he was such a loud snorer. My dad would sleep in my brother's room as well. In the morning, my dad asked my mom what she was doing walking around at 2 a.m. She denied that she was. But I backed up my dad because I heard it too. She continued to say it wasn't her, and the next night it was the same thing, heavy footsteps at 2 to 3 in the morning. My dad and I attempted to recreate the footsteps, used hard steel boots, but nothing came close to the sound. I started having weird dreams. In them, I felt awake and would see a big dark figure in the middle of my room that would move closer to me. Then, when it would reach out to me, I would wake up to more footsteps. I once had friends over after a party who all between 2 and 3 a.m. asked if there was someone in the house. I couldn't really give them a response other than, "Oh yeah, those are just my ghosts." Finally, we decided to try to move all the souvenirs my brother brought back, which included 6 African masks. When we really looked at them, there were a few that were terrifying, like really demonic looking. So we put them in the garage. This is what really got me. For the next 2 days, birds would fly into the glass of my parents' bay window in their bedroom and die. We had to pick up like 15 dead birds. It only stopped when my dad got rid of the masks. We blame the masks, but I still have no clue why this stuff went down. Very creepy. Very, very creepy. What do you got, Don?
I can certainly go with another one here. Let's see here. The Lowe's Cottage couple sues for undisclosed haunting.
By all means.
In 1994, so now here we are in modern times. In 1994, an English couple named Andrew and Josie Smith moved into Lowe's Cottage with their 3 children. The house was a centuries-old sandstone residence located in the village of Upper Mayfield. The Smiths had purchased it from a pair of sisters, Susan Melbourne and Sandra Podmore. However, according to the Smiths, they would soon discover that Lowe's Cottage was haunted. Objects in the house started moving on their own, and visions of ghostly figures appeared. At one point, Josie claimed to have seen a spirit attempt to rape and strangle her as she was in bed. Wow. The Smiths would also learn of a local urban legend involving a young milkmaid who once lived in the house before she was raped and murdered. The family decided to flee Lowe's Cottage, but the previous owners filed suit against them for £3,000, the final installment of the Smiths' down payment. In response, the Smiths filed a countersuit against the former owners for failing to disclose that the house was haunted. The 2 sisters claimed that they had never experienced any paranormal activity during their time there and believed the Smiths were fabricating the story to get out of paying what they owed. The case was heard by Derby County Court in 1999, and the Smiths made an attempt to make a far-fetched story sound convincing. A priest named Reverend Peter Mockford had been brought in to bless Lowe's Cottage, and he would testify that he believed the house was haunted. In spite of this testimony, the judge did not believe the story and ruled in favor of the 2 sisters, ordering the Smiths to pay them the £3,000. Wow.
Wow. Very cool.
So the Stambovsky versus Ackley. A house is legally declared haunted.
Really?
It's very rare for lawsuits involving haunted houses to find success in a court of law. But in the case of Stambovsky versus Ackley is an odd exception. In 1989, a man named Jeffrey Stambovsky, Stambovsky, purchased a house in Nyack, New York, which was previously occupied by Helen Ackley and her family. However, it wasn't until after Stambovsky and his wife moved in that he learned that the house had attained much notoriety and was rumored to be haunted. For years, Ackley had been claiming that her house was occupied by ghosts, and even sold her story to Reader's Digest and other media outlets. The problem was neither Ackley nor her realtor bothered to disclose the information before the new owners purchased the house. Even though Stambovsky never saw any ghosts and did not believe in them, his wife was still terrified of the prospect of living in a haunted house. He decided to file suit against Ackley and her realtor for fraudulent misrepresentation and demanded to be let out of his contract. He initially lost his suit in lower court, but after a successful appeal, his case would be heard in front of the appellate division of the New York Supreme Court in 1991. Believe it or not, the court actually ruled in his favor. He was allowed out of his contract and his down payment on the house was returned. The ruling was based on the fact that Ackley had publicly advertised her home as being haunted and made money from selling that story, so she was obligated to disclose this fact to potential buyers. In the words of the judges, as a matter of law, the house is haunted. Wow. Huh.
That's crazy.
Yeah, haunted house. I'll have to remember never to buy that house, and it's in Nyack, New York, so there you go.
Do you have any desire to go to Nyack, New York?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nope.
Okay, I think you're probably okay then.
Yeah, I don't think I'm too worried about it. You know, maybe the Finger Lakes for a brief visit, but that's about it.
The what?
Ithaca area.
Oh.
The Ithaca area
Ithaca.
up north. It's up by the Finger Lakes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
how's about that, ladies and gentlemen?
there you go.
We are cruising through the night, and I hope you guys are having a good time. I'm so sorry about the beginning of the show and all of the chaos that ensued, but if the equipment's not going to fail, then something else is just going to go haywire. It's just the way the portal works. It's the way it works here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't pretend to be in control. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Yeah, it's pretty much Jesus take the wheel kind of thing, or whoever takes the wheel, whether that be, a ghost or an apparition or a poltergeist, who cares?
Someone's driving this bus, but it ain't me.
It ain't me.
That's
I don't
right.
have my hands on that wheel.
That's right. So I don't know if you guys tuned in for last night's show, but again, it was primarily a test, but I did drop some stories that I think were, or some information that I think was at least, I don't know, hopefully my plan is to put out more of these streams or more episodes anyway on YouTube that talk about paranormal things and try to, I don't know, try to consolidate some of this information that's out there, because there's tons and tons and tons of information on the web, and a lot of it is not good information. I mean, it's just not, it's not spun in any kind of research or any kind of logic. It's just, I don't know, sometimes you'd swear that people just sit down and try to think of weird stuff to type in terms of the paranormal. And I know that the paranormal activity is incredibly dynamic, and it's not so easy to just
Quantify.
Lump some into, this label or this label or this label. And, there's much more dynamic things at work. But I hope that at least we can come up with some good information as a repository for, what I think and whatever that's worth. I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert. I've never claimed to be an expert. I don't believe there are experts in this field, but I think, I've certainly had plenty of experiences of my own, and I've been involved in, several incidents, and I think that I at least have a basic understanding of what's going on for the most part. I can't claim to know everything, but I thought, well, I'm going to take some time and put out some informational videos to just try to put out, I don't know, just one location that has at least reasonable information, and hopefully people will get some ideas of what they're looking at, and maybe find some information on how to deal with what could otherwise be a very frightening and terrifying experience.
Right.
Because again, you go to 50 different sites and you'll find 50 different pieces of information, and a lot of times they'll have little threads that may be commonalities, but they'll come up with these narratives that who knows where they come up with this stuff, I mean, really. So it's kind of like YouTube. You go in there and you look for a video, and you'll come up with 5,000 videos about that same subject, but they're very different. And so I don't know. I'm just trying to make the Paranormal Portal a resource as well as an entertainment place. And I hope you guys like that. If you don't, then you'll have to let me know. And let me know what you guys think of any of this. If you would, please comment on the videos. Definitely spread them around and let people know. And additionally, you can email Don and myself at the portal anytime at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and just let us know, or stop by the Facebook page too. And I'm not trying to close the show, but I just thought I would throw that in as a bit of a segue. Don, did you need a break or anything? Or
No, I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing just fine.
All right. Well, let's go for it. I mean, it's 8:30 our time, so yeah.
And the stream is solid, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's do it.
We are cooking up a long broadcast here, and everything looks like it's going wonderfully. And there are allegedly 8 people watching.
Yeah, Jimmy left, and I'm not sure who else left, but Pixie says everything looks good. Jimmy said everything looked and sounded good too. So,
well, wonderful. We're certainly thrilled you guys are here, and all 8 of you. I love you dearly, and I don't know if that number is accurate or not. I assume it must be, but we are trying to start some momentum here under the Paranormal Portal title, and Don is also going to be putting together videos for content as well.
I will. I am. They're in my head. I just got to get them recorded.
And you can watch them in Don's head at any time by just... no, I'm just kidding. None of us can watch what's in his head, but he's going to be putting them onto video, and that'll just be some differing information and stuff that we don't get a chance to cover on the show, and maybe we can't get quite that granular, or whatever the case may be. But let us know if there's something you'd like to hear as well on the Paranormal Portal. We certainly are
take ideas.
Happy to hear your guys' input and what you would like to hear or see more of,
or if you have stories,
or what you'd like to see less of. That's always an option as well.
Dawn.
No, that's not true.
Put him behind the curtain.
Well, they do like your shadow dance. I'll give you that. Don does the shadow dance every once in a while.
The thumb dance.
The thumb dance, yeah. So, anyway, I'm going to pick up some more stories here for you guys, and these are some deeply creepy tales of the paranormal to read if you don't want to sleep tonight. So we get a lot of those titles about.
Yeah, I don't sleep most nights.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the paranormal.
I don't know.
So this first one is called The Baby. This is kind of creepy. I read ahead a little bit while you were reading, and I was like, ooh. So anyway, my mom told me the story the other day, and it freaked me the hell out. When my oldest sister was little, like 3, she asked my then pregnant aunt to pick her up and hold her. My aunt said that she was like, "She can't pick you up, honey." No, it says my mom. My mom said she was like, "She can't pick you up, honey. She has a baby in her tummy." And then my little sister was like, "That baby is dead."
Yeah.
My mom freaked out, but my aunt and grandma were fine and were telling my mom that it was all good and she was just a toddler and didn't know what she was saying. Well, lo and behold, my aunt goes to the doctor the next day for a routine pregnancy checkup, and the baby was dead.
Ooh.
Gives me the willies just thinking about it. That's wild.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Very wild.
You know, it just goes to show that children have that natural premonition. They have that natural connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they just know things like like we've talked about a million times. Unless to nurture, that instead of shutting it down, and
right.
and guide them, and That way, maybe we could bring back some magic to the world.
I wish, I sure hope so. And I certainly hope that, people find that magic again, because I think that's, I mean, it's not just about being, making it a Disney World or whatever, that's not what it's about. It's just about the human spirit seems so much more vibrant and alive when people saw the magic and everything around them, and they reveled in existence, and they reveled in the idea that the world and the universe was unfolding before them. And now in the imperative of science and the label and categorize and put it on a shelf kind of thinking has just sterilized that. And I think that the world is just so much more mundane without that vision, without that that sense of wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just my 2 cents again, but what do you do? The missing shotgun is next, ladies and gentlemen. My father passed away last year. One item he always said he wanted me to have was a shotgun, which had originally belonged to his grandfather. For years, he had the shotgun stashed in the attic. After he passed, I had gone into the attic to look for it, only to find that it wasn't there. A few months later, I had a dream in which I was talking to him, and I asked him where he had put the shotgun. He told me it was in the closet of the spare bedroom. I called my mother and had her check, and sure enough, that's where it was. Now, it's completely possible that my father had told me that when he was alive, and the dream was a little more than a memory, but I certainly don't recall that being the case. And that's a very cool moment. I don't know. What do you think of that one, Don?
I'm sorry, I tuned that one out.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Just being honest.
No, I appreciate that. I rather you did that than try to make up an answer to something. Something you have no context for.
Something or other.
You could just say something like, "Yeah, that's really phenomenal."
That was wild.
That's a good canned answer.
Wow.
You can keep that one on deck just in case it happens again.
All right, cool. All right, I have permission. Everybody heard that, right? I have permission to fake that one. Okay.
All right, the flying key is next. And when I was 15, my mother and I were standing in the kitchen talking. There was a rack on the wall holding keys about 8 foot away. A key from the rack flew across the room and hit the floor near our feet. This is the only event in my life for which I have no explanation. I don't know why the letter I is in there, but the only event in my life for which I have no explanation. I see it was just mistyped. I don't know what the key went to. It was an old, heavy key. The house was built in the 1880s, so it could have been original to the house.
Huh.
That's the whole story, but it just allegedly, for some reason, flew off the key rack and landed at their feet.
Huh. I was thinking maybe it had wings and you had to chase it down on a broomstick or something.
That's true. That was in Harry Potter, wasn't it?
I guess so.
Ah.
I don't watch those movies.
You don't? Oh, I'd watch the hell out of them.
I've read the books, watched the movies.
Yeah, me too. I have no problem saying that I would love to go to Hogwarts, but not that they'd have me. They'd be afraid I was going to Voldemort it up in there.
Can you imagine him as a Hufflepuff?
I can't. Every day before the shower, Don. I can imagine it every day before my shower.
Oh, goodness.
All right. The next one is camping in Canada. Scariest moment of my life happened while my friend and I were camping in eastern Canada as teenagers. We decided to sleep in this abandoned camper that we found deep in a large forest that was near our town. It had been there so long that small trees had grown around it. We'd stumbled across it when we were exploring a few months back and thought it would be cool and brave to sleep there for a night. So one weekend we did it. We arrived after dark because we had gotten lost trying to find the camper. We had really low power flashlights, so it made it even more difficult. Once we finally found it, we opened the rusty door and stepped in. The sounds inside the camper were shrill and echoey. There were typical camper things strewn about: cups, empty cans, swollen pulp fiction novels. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Swollen pulp fiction novels? Just swollen with age, like the
or
moisture?
Wet. They had gotten wet, maybe. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Already tired, we holed up in one end of the camper where the bed area had originally been before. The cushions had rotten away to almost nothing. A long hallway stretched the length of the camper so we could basically see from one end to the other. It was a miserable night. There were several rats living in there. I saw them staring at us from a chewed out part of the ceiling. When the wind blew, outside the camper would shriek and groan. We even thought we heard a bear outside too, walking around. Still, we feigned bravery and acted like we were having a good time, but we were on edge. At some point, I woke up from an uncomfortable sleep. I sat up to adjust myself when I noticed some movement out of the corner of my eye at the other end of the camper. There was a small window, and as I looked at it, I saw a man's silhouette. He was clearly staring straight at me from outside. At first I thought maybe it was a weird shape of a tree or something, but when I moved a bit to get a better look at the person, clearly reacted and froze. My heart was pumping, and I woke my friend, immediately saying, "Someone is here," over and over in a whisper, not taking my eyes off of his profile. He woke up immediately, and I nodded towards the window. He saw him too. We whispered frantically about who it could be and why was he staring at us. And for the next 10 minutes, no joke, we stared him down. The longer we stared at him, the more frightened we got. Occasionally, he would move, but always keeping his eyes locked on us. Eventually, I shouted at him, "Hey!" No reaction. My friend was braver than me and decided to shine the flashlight at him. As soon as he did, we realized our horrible mistake. It wasn't a window at all on the other side of the camper. It was a mirror. We had been staring down ourselves from the very start. Completely idiotic. Still, it was the most fearful, relieving, and funny moment of my life that I'll never forget it. Closest to paranormal I've ever been.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that was a cliffhanger there for a minute. That was a mirror.
That was kind of well written.
That was very well written. Nice job.
Hey, Brent, guess what?
What?
That was wild.
That really was wild, but you were paying attention, weren't you?
That time I was, yes.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Don gets caught paying attention.
Yeah, well, there's no punishment for that.
Oh, dang.
There's no demerits on that one, brother. But that's a cool story, though. I kind of like that. I kind of do. That was the closest. I was expecting this, I don't know, a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, shadow person, something.
That's a decent twist.
That was a good twist. That was really clever. Very clever. A figure in the hallway is the next one. I saw a shadow person once. I didn't know that that's what it was called until much later. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, there had been a speakeasy, a brothel, a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was alone in the house. The way the place was built was incredibly haphazard. There was a bedroom and living room on one side, then a bathroom and two entrances. On the other side of the bathrooms was a hallway, and that had windows in one side and two bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom, even though the bathroom and then through the bathroom and down the other hall. I was standing at my dresser, and I just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, and honest to God, and this gives me goosebumps just typing it, 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall, and it was only vaguely humanoid. It looked like a black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved like electricity arcing. That's the best way to describe it. There is no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remember when I saw it, I wasn't afraid, just like, what the hell? And then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I was just frozen because it just came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed on it, shut on it. Then I screamed. I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went outside into the daylight and didn't go back in until she got home about 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something. I just don't know what it was. It's funny when people are so afraid to say that it was something paranormal. I mean, clearly it was paranormal
By the
because
strict definition.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
definitely.
it's a black scribble of a being. I mean, what the hell do you call it if it's not paranormal? I don't I don't know why people are so afraid of that label. Like for some people to admit that they had a paranormal experience would somehow admit that they, I don't know, that there was something wrong with them. And I don't know how you can relate an event like that and come to the conclusion that you're not prepared to say it was paranormal. Because if you claim that that is normal, then there's something more wrong with you, you know?
Right.
I don't know. Is it just me or am I just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 Well, it's like you tell me all the time, well, if it's not normal, it's got to be paranormal. And you just need to admit that.
Well, yeah, I mean it's just a word. It doesn't say that you suddenly subscribe to everything in the paranormal realm. I mean, there are plenty of people that are hunting Bigfoot that don't believe in ghosts.
Right.
There are plenty of people hunting ghosts that don't believe in Bigfoot. There are plenty of people who believe in UFOs and aliens and aliens walking among us who can't possibly imagine the idea of there being, ghosts or Bigfoot.
Right.
And so, I mean, it doesn't have to say that suddenly you belong to a different club and you're screwed up,
Right. Yeah.
I think that, we will come to a point at some time where we understand more about this multiverse that we're in and all of the things that inhabit it. And then it won't be any different than having discovered a new monkey and, in
Right.
Uganda or wherever. I mean, it won't be that much different. It'll just be like, oh, guess we figured this out. This is really there. It'll be like, oh, the shadow people. Yeah, they're really there. They've been here for a long time. And it turns out that they are, whatever they are. I don't know. It's just so many people are so turned off by the term paranormal in that it somehow implies instability. And it's just, something outside of the normal that we don't know yet is just all it is. This next one is called Just Outside the Door. I was trying to sleep in my room back when I was younger and live with my folks. I must have been maybe 17 or 18. I opened my eyes while rolling over to get comfortable, and I see a black figure just outside my door, who I thought was my stepfather in the dark, with his hands up by his chest, making a scary finger motions at me like you might do sarcastically after a scary story or a witch might do when casting a spell, just moving fingers wildly in my direction. I guess it's like this, That's what came to my mind. I should note that this figure had no definite shape, or no defined shape. It just looked like squiggles that moved in a vague shape, and I chalked it up to the lack of light and my stepfather. What is it with squiggles in this storylines here? Well, I look over and say, what the hell are you doing? Thinking it was really stupid, creepy thing to do at night. Well, in that moment, it vanished, just gone. It was at that moment my heart sank and I became petrified with fear. One of the few moments I was scared out of my mind and couldn't comprehend what I just saw. And I don't blame you. A presence all through the house.
It's like a Christmas story.
Oh, presence?
No, the all through the house part.
Oh, all through the house.
It wasn't a noise, not even a mouse.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just keep thinking of that damn school bus, or the wheels on the bus, all through the town. Oh, man. It's still haunting me, Don. He still loves that song. Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild.
It is. I was probably 11 or 12 and never really had any belief in the supernatural or aliens, etc. Around roughly 5 a.m., I was sleeping on my bottom bunk at the end of our hallway when a shadow figure about the height of my dad was standing in the doorway. Not doing anything, just standing. I could hear my grandmother, who was watching us at the time, in the basement, and I could vaguely remember my dad leaving about an hour earlier. I closed my eyes twice, opened them, and just stared with a squint so it looked like I was sleeping. Eventually, I was so scared I just closed my eyes and secretly hoped it was all some weird dream. I couldn't sleep, but soon after I heard dresser drawers slamming very loud in our spare bedroom.
Nice.
All of a sudden, my grandma runs upstairs and tells me to quit making so much noise. I tell her what's up, and she opens the spare bedroom door, and there's nothing there. No possible way to escape either. A second-story window with the screen still intact.
Huh.
No, that's just rotten. I just gotta wonder why the hell would something need to do that kind of stuff. I mean, it's one thing to appear there and be a being. Here I am. I'm here. You can see me. But now I'm gonna go in your other room and make a bunch of raise a bunch of hell just because. It just seems like such a pissy thing to do. Is it just me?
No, that would be, that's something I would have done to my brothers and sisters, but I couldn't get away. If I could, whatever.
Right. But it's just a creepy, weird behavior, and I'm not sure why they just have to be so rambunctious.
Settle down in there.
Here's another one. It was like it was made of static. What is this? All these stories tonight.
Wow. That's
Just another one. It's a big one. It's a big one.
Oh, it looks like two different stories, though.
Story number 2. I think it's maybe. It was like it was made of static.
Why do I keep hearing our theme music?
You do?
Yeah, I just keep hearing this ding, ding. At the beginning of your song,
the bell? Or
Yeah.
the chime? I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on in your head, Don.
I'm not either, apparently.
Don is subliminally hoping for the end of the show.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I don't know what it is. I'm not hearing it.
All right.
Now, I will tell you that on many other nights, I swear I've heard our theme music, but that's not tonight. I'm not hearing it tonight. I do like this sweater, though. That's pretty cool. Check that out.
That's pretty dope sweater there, buddy.
It is, right?
I like the frog toggles with.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I like that neck.
Actually,
design.
that turtleneck with the frog toggles.
Is that what those are called? Is frog toggles?
Yeah.
Very cool, ladies and gentlemen, but you can't see it. But
Too bad. It's pretty dope.
It's dope. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, that'd be epic. I wouldn't look nearly that chiseled in it, but maybe someday, but not today. It was like it was made of static. I was laying in my bed, and the room door in front of me wide open, and to the left I could see the room where the front door was. There was an antique cabinet that my dad had that illuminated a white glow. I started to freak out for no reason and started sweating. I, for some reason, knew things were about to happen, and I was about to witness something. About 5 minutes later, laying hot in sweat, I saw it. There was a door in the back of the room with the front door that was storage. A black outlined humanoid figure walks out, mildly static looking. It takes a few steps towards the front door, then stops. Does a military style turn facing me. At this point, I'm freaking out with my eyes wide. It walks into my room and stops beside my bed. Does one more military turn facing me. At that point, I figured, what have I got to lose? I noped the hell out and ran through the thing, ran upstairs to my parents' bedroom, and knocked furiously at the door, waiting to be let in. Eyes focused on the stairs, making sure it wasn't following me. Nothing. I slept with my parents for the next few nights. Story number 2, a short time after the shadow people encounter, I began to settle down and my thoughts were no longer fearful. I also believe this was during the time I put up a dream catcher that my mother got me at the time. Let me just say that dream catching really did the job for years, maybe because I truly believed in it and my mind worked in my favor. Excuse me. Anyway, I woke up one morning to Mom yelling downstairs for me to get up. It was a school day. I had to shower, come back to my room, and sat on my bed, sluggishly slipping my school uniform on. This is where it goes down. As I was pulling on my socks, I noticed a flash outside my door, more toward the room with the front door. Not the bright camera type of flash, but more like an invisible person walking past super fast past my door. For those of you that played Halo, it looked more like someone walking around with the invisibility cloak, but real fast past my door.
Okay.
You can still see them, but not entirely. I saw this from the corner of my eye and I began to freak out. I went upstairs to eat breakfast and I remember how scared I was. I sat there staring down at the table as I ate my cereal. My mother asked what was up, and I looked up at her with a straight face and said something along the lines of, I saw a flash by the door downstairs. Something walked past my door. I said this calmly and with a straight face, and now that I look back on this, I must have looked like the classic creepy kid. My mom replied with, it's all in your head. Jeez, so damaging. I went back to eating, and she went in the laundry room behind the kitchen, and that's when it happened again. I was eating when I saw another flash of an invisible person walk past the kitchen door. This time I was paralyzed, as in I stopped chewing and now staring straight down the table. These bastards are playing with me. Mom walks in, stops, sees my reaction, and again I calmly say, it just did it again, over there. Pointing at the kitchen threshold, I tell my mom something is playing with me, and I'm not imagining things. What really relieved me, but freaked me out at the same time, was her reply, I know. It relieved me because she believed me, but freaked me out because she basically confirmed their existence. About 10 seconds later, we both heard someone walking down the stairs, wooden so creaking can be heard. Very slowly. I remember thinking to myself that it sounded as if their cover was blown and they're trying to sneak out. My mom and I both looked at each other, and once we heard it stop, she looked around the corner down the stairs. Nothing. Dad had already left for work. What the hell? Yeah, that's terrible. And it's only, it's story number 3 on this page. This story is set in the Philippines, where I've heard many stories from my relatives about paranormal things happening in the house we stayed at. This is something that I've experienced myself. This happened in the second-story living room. This living room was huge, tall ceiling, about 20 feet by 45 feet worth of room. It was during Christmas time, and we had a tree set up in the middle of the room towards the north side. A large Jesus table on the east side positioned north-south, and there was a television set up on the west side, with a large green velvet couch about 15 feet in front of the TV, and another couch set up sideways to the TV but backed up against the sliding door to the balcony. There was enough room for someone to walk behind the couch and get to the open screen doors to the balcony. Anyway, my Filipino cousins, I'm half Filipino, and I were gathered around the TV, some of them on the floor, one on the back couch, and me on the couch by the sliding door. We were all watching either a game show or something overly bubbly. At this time, it was getting late for us, maybe 10 p.m. or so. Here's where the real stuff goes down. I'm sitting on the couch with my legs up and one knee up. Remote is dangling on the backrest edge to my right, and I hear it drop behind me. So little me, being the ninja I am, slides over the top of the couch on my back, like a bridge stretch for your back, with my face pressed up against the glass. I grab the remote from the corner of my eye, I see a little girl with black hair. She had a white dress on and was looking down so I couldn't see her face. She was in a crawling position, backing up like she had been caught and trying to escape. She was backing up towards the middle of the room, towards the Christmas tree. I still upside down at this point, and when I managed to look over at her, she disappeared. I scuttled right back up and jumped. All my cousins looked at me like, what the hell? I then explained to them what I saw, and they started basically shaking their fingers, pointing at me as if they know that I must have done something to see something. They were smiling, though, as if it's a normal thing. To this day, I still think that they were just messing with me with the whole you got in trouble with the supernatural. But I know what I saw, and I was always scared whenever I was in the Philippines, especially that house. In the area we lived, in Betis, B-E-T-I-S, I don't know what that means. This house was like a mansion. It was opposite some basketball courts, in case anyone knows Betis. Anyway, if anyone ever goes to the Philippines, ask the locals for some supernatural stories. I'd imagine everyone there has experienced something, as all my Filipino relatives have, including our maids. One maid ran away once because of an encounter, and she came back, and I've met her before and she hates talking about it. Very strange. The next one is the rocking chair, ladies and gentlemen. The rocking chair. My grandfather passed away just a few weeks after I was born. Never met the guy, never knew what he looked like. When I was 5 years old, I started to see this man in our rocking chair. I called him the rocking chair man. My parents thought it was an imaginary friend stage, but it started to bug them when I told them every single day. They finally questioned me about it, and I told them every detail I could remember, and finally they showed me a picture of a man. It was my grandfather. To this day, I'm 22 now. Every time I dream, he is in the background somewhere. I remember when I dreamed about my high school graduation, and I looked in the stands, and I saw him with my parents. I like to think that he's just watching out for me and being there when he's really not there. That's the rocking chair man. Huh. All right, we're at 8:55?
8:55. Goodness.
Wow.
That gives us almost 2 hours.
It almost does, ladies and gentlemen.
And we have 14 people watching us now.
We have 14 people. Well, welcome all 14 of you.
Yeah, it went down to 9 for a while there.
Well, it's just the portal. It just sucks people back in.
I know.
It's like a big Hoover.
Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, this sucks.
Nah, I don't know what show you're watching, Don, but not the portal. This is the portal, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going good. So, I'm just so thrilled. The stream has been stable. Everything's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been good.
I think we're doing good. How you doing, brother?
I'm all good.
You want to continue?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
A couple more stories, sure, but I got things to do in the morning.
Who's reading those stories?
Well, you just have this voice that everybody wants to hear. Are you looking at the camera like, why is he BSing me? Do you see what he's doing?
Are you guys hearing this?
There it is. They're just now seeing it.
Yeah, that was a suck up job worthy of a medal. That was worthy of some kind of trophy, Don.
Thank you.
Don, you know how to suck up. Wow.
Just like a Hoover.
Yeah.
It's just like the portal.
Yeah, it's like a wet dry vac up in here. Well, there you have it, folks. I guess I'm reading a couple more stories.
Well, it doesn't mean I can't read one.
It doesn't, but
I'm only catching your facial expressions on the delay.
This is what I got to deal with. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, the teacher saying goodbye is the next story, and then the portal will be saying goodbye. But first, let me give you these stories. I attended the same university for my bachelor's and my PhD. There was a lovely woman by the name of Jennifer who was in my reading at the content area instructor. Who was my reading in the content area instructor? Oh, okay. I guess a class is called Reading in the Content Area. The guys all swooned over her. She was gorgeous, and I loved her because she reads us The Giver out loud. She was an awesome instructor, and was doing her PhD in literacy. Fast forward a few years, and Jen has moved to South Carolina to teach literacy. I'm now in my PhD program in the same grad student's office she used to work in, with other literacy people that were her colleagues. And then we get the news that she was murdered by her boyfriend. Ooh. Everyone is totally devastated. It was a huge blow to the department, as she was genuinely loved by everyone who knew her. So a few days after her funeral, her body was brought home. I'm in the office suite at the school very early in the morning when everyone else was around, when nobody else was around, rather. The grad students had a fishbowl office, 10 of us, with group desks, within a larger office suite that was locked and had light motion sensors. I'm walking in and past a locked door with windows, and I see a woman with short, dark hair walk the other way inside, which was weird because the lights didn't flicker on when she moved. So I walked around the corner to the door with the key code and let myself in. I walk inside, and head to where I saw her. The lights flicker on when they sense me. Nobody is there. It's just me. An entire suite of empty offices. I swear to God it was her, saying goodbye to a place she spent so many years, where she had so many friends. It spooked the hell out of me, but made me sad too. That is horrible. Oh, look at this short story. Wow. A sudden premonition. About 20 years ago, my mom came out of the shower, pale, shaking, and hysterical. My aunt spoke to me, and she is here to pick someone up. I know she is talking about my father. She said to my dad and I. Her aunt has been dead for many years. 2 days later, my grandfather, Mom's father, was in the hospital. He was in a coma and died shortly after that from undetected lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I'm sorry, I read that one like hell. I'll read through this page. One life for another is the next story, ladies and gentlemen. Girlfriend's mom had cancer and dreamed of her grandma one night. I don't remember the type, but doctors gave her a 5% chance of survival. She said her grandmother said something to the effect of, I'm going to die so that you may live. And the next day her mom called her and said, I have grave news. My girlfriend's mom said, don't tell me, Grandma passed away. Her mom, yes, how did you know? She survived and has been cancer-free for 20 years. Another story was that my girlfriend was with my girlfriend's sister. The family was going through a photo album, and her sister pointed to a man and said, that's Grandpa. Her mom asks, yes, but how do you know? You never met him. Died before she was born. And she replied, he sits at the foot of my bed some nights and we talk. That is so cool. That is so cool. Very cool. Just knowing those loved ones might be out there keeping an eye on us. This one is called No More Going Out at Night. I grew up in the Arctic. Wow. I don't imagine you go out a lot.
That's a chilly thing right there.
Where are you going to go to? That's the point. I live in the town I lived in. In the town I lived in, as long as it was a clear night, it was an extremely normal occurrence to see all sorts of strange lights move across the sky. Keep in mind the winter is long in the Arctic, which means longer amounts of time being spent under the stars. It's quite beautiful, as long as you don't mind the cold so much. Sometimes I would drive a snowmobile a few kilometers out of town, shut it down, and just lay down on the snow, looking up at the majesty of it all. The only thing disturbing the silence being the occasional breeze. The northern lights are also a common occurrence. Doesn't happen every day, but often enough that they start getting ignored after a while, as long as they aren't too spectacular anyway. One particular night, without asking my parents, it was their snowmobile, I decided to go on one of my midnight drives out of town. I drove a few kilometers over the hills to find a spot devoid of lights, pollution, from town, and shut off the machine and settled in to a good spot to look up and be retrospective. It wasn't all that interesting a scene, a few satellites passing here and there, some relatively boring activity affecting the magnetic field, and then I started noticing a clicking noise. And there's like ellipses there, so I guess I have to go to the next page.
I hope it's on the next page.
It's going to be a long story, I'll bet. It's a long story, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my God.
Nice.
At first, I thought it was the sound of the snow machine cooling down as the engine expands and contracts a lot in the cold, but the sound source of the sound definitely wasn't coming from that direction. My next thought was that there must be an animal nearby, in which case I need to get out of there fast. You don't really want to mess with a wild animal. But the clicking is far too regular for an animal to produce it. It was fairly mechanical sounding. And again, the source of the sound isn't coming from anywhere around me laterally. It was coming from up. So naturally I look up, determined to ascertain the origin of this strange noise. I see what I always see: stars, northern lights, a lazy satellite crossing the sky, all normal stuff. But before I dismiss it altogether and begin heading home, I noticed something strange in the aurora borealis. There were 3 rather strong points of light. I ignored them at first, thinking they were oddly symmetrical stars, but this proved false. They were definitely getting brighter. I kept staring in morbid fascination as they grew stronger and stronger, yet still only remaining single points in the sky. All the while, the clicking noise is getting louder and louder, and more pronounced, almost like someone started with tapping a pen on a desk and clacking billiard balls together inside of my head. Then it stops. The lights are gone. The clicking is not heard, and aside from being a little stiff and cold, and rather petrified, I'm fine. So I jump back on the snowmobile, thinking maybe I'm going crazy. The machine takes a little longer than usual to start up, and I'm beginning to worry, but soon it's running and I'm heading back to town. As I'm driving back, several plausible scenarios as to what occurred are running through my head. I'm thinking it could have been a helicopter from the mine or some strange northern lights behavior, etc. Probably not that big of a deal. I pull up to my house. Lights are still dark, strange. It wasn't that late when I left. Open the outer door as quietly as possible, remove winter gear, enter inner door. House is quiet, really quiet. My parents are teachers and are usually up late marking papers or watching TV. All I'm thinking is I have to get to bed without anyone noticing. Proves to be easy. As soon as I'm under my covers, I go to set an alarm for the next day. All of a sudden, everything makes sense. Engine hard to start, stiff, rather chilly, nobody up when I was gone. What felt like relatively short period of time. It was almost 11 p.m. when I left, and now it was creeping up on 6 a.m. I stood staring at clicking lights for almost 7 hours. I never ended up sleeping that night. I don't go on late night snow machine rides anymore. You know, there are legends of people disappearing, and they blame it on the northern lights.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's something to that. Maybe there is some kind of other phenomenon going on with the northern lights that may be, much more sentient than previously thought. Huh. Very cool story, though. In the trees, in the darkness. I think this one's the last. So I'll read through this one, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll call it a night here on the portal.
Okay.
In the trees, in the darkness, or in the tree, in the darkness. Whenever I was scared as a kid, my dad had always told me that in life you should not be scared of a ghost. Fear the living because they can actually hurt you. In my late teenage years, I came into some money, and my father committed suicide. After my father committed suicide, and I received an inheritance from him. At time of my dad's passing, he and my mom owned a cabin up in Oregon by Mount Bachelor. The cabin had been put up for sale since my mom could no longer afford the payments, and renting it out was not covering the payments either. The cabin was set up to go on the market for sale in less than a month, and was in the process of finalizing all the paperwork with the realtor and the lawyer. So for that month's time, the cabin was not going to be rented out any longer, and was going to be vacant. I saw this as a chance to get away for a while and clear my head in light of all the things going on. I quit work, packed up my snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog, and headed up in my dad's car that he had willed to me, to the cabin. Now, this was our family cabin, and my parents rented out throughout the year when we were not using it. I had keys to the cabin and also had the code for the alarm, so I did not feel the need to stop at the rental management company and advise them of my stay. This has nothing to do with the coming story, but felt the need to mention it anyway. My first 2 days at the cabin were normal, nothing out of the unusual happening. Spent my days playing with my dog in the snow, snowboarding, and evenings playing PlayStation, or listening to music, drinking and smoking out on the balcony. Had already stocked up on food, cigarettes, and liquor, so I was pretty much shut-in aside from the occasional out to hit the slopes, with my dog as company and DVDs, PlayStation as entertainment. I was quite content and started to feel relaxed after all the drama that had preceded my outing. The cabin itself was 2 stories. Bottom story had a living room and the side guest bedroom along with a small kitchen. Upstairs had another 2 rooms along with a walkout balcony attached to the master bedroom. Most of my time there was spent either in the living room, kitchen, or master bedroom. I never ventured into the other rooms and always kept the doors leading into them shut. Open doors to dark rooms always creep me out. Oh, I guess it's a long story. Never mind, next page.
Wow.
This is definitely the last one I'm reading. Anyway, the 3rd day came around, and I was just going through my usual routine of playing with my dog. His name was Midnight, by the way, and he also since passed. Playing games and watching DVDs. That day it was pretty heavy snowfall, so I did not feel like trekking down the hill to go to the main road in my car and decided to stay in. And that's when things started getting a bit weird. In our area, there were only 2 other cabins adjacent to ours, maybe a block away from each other. All the other cabins, aside from these 2, were around a mile away from ours. Surrounding us is mostly forest and very tall pine trees. Tall, this is important later on. Both these cabins were empty from the past couple of days. I knew that no one was currently staying there. Gave enough background and am going to jump into the weirdness. All around midday, while outside with my dog, I noticed what looked like footprints in the snow around the area surrounding our cabin. It was still snowing, so the footprints looked semi-fresh, like someone had just been there in the last 20 to 30 minutes before me. I thought that maybe someone was staying in the cabin near me and that I may not have noticed. Maybe they were shut-ins like me. All right, whatever. The prints led away from my cabin and they disappeared in the snow towards the denser part of the trees. Disregarding the footprints, and went back inside. Nighttime came around and decided to head back to bed. My dog Midnight was laying on the bed with me when I noticed his ears perked up in a standstill listening position. This was followed by him quickly jumping off the bed and running downstairs to the living room. I lay in bed and stayed silent. I was kind of freaked out, and I could hear him moving around downstairs back and forth. After around 5 minutes, he ran back upstairs to me and started to do his doggy dance for the sign that he had to pee or wanted to go outside. Shoot. Well, fine. I can't say no to him. So we both go downstairs to the outside driveway for him to do his thing, only he didn't want to pee. As soon as we were outside, he started to pull on his leash, trying to drag me to where he wanted to go. He kept looking into the dense part of the trees where the prints had been earlier, but he also kept sniffing the side of the house and looking up towards the roof. After he figured out that I was not going to go where he wanted, he sat himself down and just stared into the darkness. A bit unusual for him, but all right, maybe there were forest animals out there that he wants to chase down. But screw this. Did not want to chance anything, so I pulled him back inside and we both headed back upstairs. Around half an hour later, I was lying in bed when I heard what sounded like hooves walking on the roof. It was only a series of around 6 steps, and I rationalized that it could have been a pine cone falling from the tree onto the roofs, or maybe a kind-hearted forest animal running around. But here's the thing. The steps seemed to be spaced apart like a man's length of stride, so it was really freaking me out. Midnight also heard the noise and was quick to run to the balcony, screen door, expecting for him to be let out. All right, you know what? I'm a tough guy, and at the time considered myself to be fairly well built and strong enough to handle myself. So I grabbed my coat and shoes along with my cigarettes and flashlight and went out into the balcony. Screw it, right? Well, as soon as I was outside, I lit up my cigarette and started canvassing the roof with my light. Nothing there, and the snow on top was undisturbed. Weird. Must have been all in my head. What about Midnight hearing the noise? Maybe he was feeding off my fear or paranoia. I started to calm down and relax again. By the way, I'm shaking right now and my heart is beating hard as I'm typing this next bit. My eyes started to adjust to the darkness, and I kept smoking and just staring at the stars and trees next to our cabin. And that's when I saw it. In a tree that was a little taller than our cabin and around 20 feet from the balcony, I saw what looked like a man crouched in a squatting position in between 2 branches. It was squatted on one branch and its arms were extended above its head, holding onto the branch above it. What the hell is that? Oh, next page. It's a really long story. I wasn't sure if I really was seeing this thing and stood up staring. What the hell did happen here? Pop-up ad on top of that.
Nice.
And another ad. Thank you very much. I wasn't sure if I was really seeing this thing and stood just staring and sat there motionless. I noticed Midnight stand up and start pacing behind me and lightly barking at the same time. The thing still did not move. I put my cigarette out and was debating on shining the light in the thing's direction, but something in my head kept screaming not to. So I walked backwards into the inside of the room and pulled Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and shined the light in the thing's direction, but there was nothing there. I shut the curtains to the screen door and retreated back to bed, but later on in the night I heard light tapping at the screen door, like someone was tapping on the glass with their fingers. It was consistent, and did not stop for nearly an hour.
Wow.
Midnight seemed to stare at the door, but he wouldn't go near it anymore. The weirdest part was that I had a feeling like someone was inviting me to open the door, but at the same time, I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head telling me to stay in bed and not to do it. I listened to my dad's voice and just stayed where I was. Passed out eventually and woke up in the morning and everything was normal. The rest of the week I spent there was non-eventful, and nothing else out of the ordinary happened. I totally admit that it could have been all in my head. A lot of stuff was going on at the time, so I was pretty messed up from all that drama.
Wow, that's so... Jeez, okay. Sure, yeah.
I just don't know what to make of it. I of course, you hear woodland stories, and automatically your head goes to the Bigfoot Sasquatch thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about the tracks he saw, and I don't understand what the hoof sounds he heard on the attic or the roof was. But being in trees would be definitely a Sasquatch behavior. But there just isn't enough information to draw any kind of hypothesis from it other than something weird was going on. So I don't know.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of craziness, ladies and gentlemen. Craziness. I got 15 people watching now. Is that right, Don?
That is what I see, yes.
Wow.
That is correct.
That is outstanding. We are thrilled that you guys are here, and it makes me want to keep reading because I just hate to, disappoint the fans. It'd even be better if Don read.
Well, you just haven't stopped. Well, granted, that last story was pretty big.
It was pretty big, but you did, you went on talking about my dulcet tones and
yes,
how relaxing they are, and you just played to my ego. So no, go ahead and take a story though.
The Hammersmith ghost. Man shoots a man he thinks is a ghost.
Ooh, do tell.
On January 3rd, 1804, Francis Smith, an excise officer from the Hammersmith area of London, was arrested for the shooting death of a bricklayer named Thomas Millwood. However, Smith claimed self-defense and had one hell of an excuse. Millwood was dressed in white clothing, so Smith thought he was shooting a ghost. Believe it or not, at the time, this did not seem as far-fetched as a far-fetched story. Throughout the previous months, Hammersmith had been plagued by numerous sightings of what appeared to be a ghostly apparition. Things got really serious when a pregnant woman claimed to have been attacked by the ghost and died 2 days later. Armed vigilantes started searching for the ghost, which is what Francis Smith just happened to be doing the night of January 3rd when he shot Thomas Millwood. Because the community was so terrified of the Hammersmith ghost, people wondered whether Smith should be held liable for Millwood's death, but he was still charged with the willful murder. At the trial, witnesses actually testified about previous incidences where Millwood's white clothing had frightened people who mistook him for a ghost. The jury initially decided that Smith should only be convicted on a lesser charge of manslaughter. However, the judge overruled that verdict and told them they needed to either find Smith guilty of murder or acquit him altogether. They chose to find him guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death. However, Smith was soon granted a royal pardon, which commuted his sentence to 1 year's hard labor. After this incident, the Hammersmith ghost was never seen again.
Ooh.
Wow.
I just don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's pretty doggone harsh.
Just don't wear white.
No doubt. Oh, let's see here.
If you don't want to get shot.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because shooting ghosts is the way to take care of them. Really?
If you watch Supernatural, it works.
Oh, well, yeah, that's got to be like a special, garlic silver bullet with, hollyhock in it.
Sure. Or what did they... I don't know. Anyway.
Holy water. Ampules of holy water.
Sure.
The ghost of Russell Colvin, innocent brothers get charged with murder.
Good God, where are you getting these stories?
I don't know. They're great, though, huh?
They're great.
They're great.
They're great. Sorry.
In May 1812, a man named Russell Colvin mysteriously disappeared without explanation from his hometown in Manchester, Vermont. Colvin happened to be the brother-in-law of Jesse and Stephen Bourne, who never liked him. Colvin's whereabouts would remain unknown for the next 7 years until the Bourne brothers' uncle, Amos Bourne, shared a crazy story. Apparently, Amos had been having reoccurring dreams that there were ghosts, where the ghost of Russell Colvin appeared at his bedside. The ghost said that he had been murdered and directed Amos towards the cellar in the Bourne family farm, where his remains are supposedly hidden. A search of the cellar hole turns up no remains, but did uncover some items that allegedly belonged to Colvin. Shortly afterwards, a dog dug up some bone fragments at another location near the Bournes' property. The Bournes brothers were subsequently arrested and charged with Calvin's murder after a forceful interrogation. Both of them eventually confessed to the crime. Even when it became apparent that Colvin's so-called remains actually belonged to an animal and that the Bournes' confession had been coerced, there was enough circumstantial evidence for them to be convicted. Jesse would receive life in prison while Stephen was sentenced to death via hanging. However, in November 1819, when the New York Evening Post published an article about the Bournes' convictions, a witness came forward to claim he had seen Russell Colvin in New Jersey. Colvin was eventually tracked down and brought to Manchester to prove he was alive. On December 22nd, 1819, just 1 month before Stephen's scheduled execution, Colvin shocked the community by making a surprise appearance. The Bourne brothers were officially exonerated.
When they actually show up, it kind of kills the case.
Yeah, it kind of like, maybe he is. Well, he must be alive because
you're guilty.
Gosh darn it, I hate it when that happens.
It was you. You did it, I know.
It was you and only you. Wow.
Wow. Boy, that's a tough act to follow.
Well, I got one more if you want me to go ahead and follow my own.
With your own story? Sure.
Sure, okay.
Or not singing, though, right?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
so-
No, we're good then. Go ahead.
You know what song's been in my head lately? Never mind, I'll skip it.
Please.
Booty versus Barnaby. Man sued for slandering a ghost. Okay, this is like the paranormal stories over here.
Wow.
All right.
It's like the Paranormal Inquirer.
Isn't the Inquirer paranormal to begin with?
I don't know.
Anti-paranormal. If one was looking through centuries worth of court records, they would be hard-pressed to find a more bizarre case than Booty versus Barnaby. Some specific details are unknown, such as the first names of the participants, and the whole thing sounds too unbelievable to be true. Well, saddle up, here we go.
Woo!
Yet an official excerpt of this case was actually found on the records in the Court of King's Bench from 1688. The story goes on that May 15th, 1687, a sea captain named Barnaby and his crew were shooting for rabbits on an island of Stromboli in Italy. I like Stromboli. That afternoon, they saw a man being chased across the island by a figure dressed in black. Barnaby recognized the man being pursued as Mr. Booty, his neighbor from back home in Gravesend, England. The two figures ran towards a volcano and mysteriously disappeared into some flames of fire.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Months later, Barnaby returned home and was shocked to learn that Mr. Booty had died around the exact same time Barnaby saw him being chased on Stromboli. Barnaby became convinced that he had seen Booty's ghost and that he was chased into the flames of hell. His story soon spread around town, but Barnaby received a stunning surprise when he found out that the deceased man's widow, Mrs. Booty, was filing a lawsuit against him for slander. Apparently, she did not like the idea of Barnaby spreading rumors that her late husband had been condemned to hell. Believe it or not, this case was actually heard at the Court of the King's Bench. Barnaby had recorded the incident from Stromboli in his ship's journal, and at least 30 witnesses backed up his story. Many of them testified that Mr. Booty appeared to be dressed in the same clothing he was wearing at the time of his death. The court came to the conclusion that a whole 30 witnesses could not be mistaken. They ruled that Barnaby had not committed slander, and Mrs. Booty lost the case.
You should not slander the booty.
That doesn't sound like a plan to me either.
Don't slander the booty.
Oh no.
Oh my God. Wow.
Oh, those were good stories. I don't know where the heck I came up with them, but I liked them.
I think they're always interesting. They're always fun, and that's a definite new one for the portal. So good job. As bizarre and surreal as those may be. But ladies and gentlemen, I love you all. Love you bunches. Thank you so much for checking out our Wednesday stream. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I've certainly enjoyed bringing the show to you in all of its glory and mayhem as usual. A new kind of mayhem.
A new kind.
You know, which is kind of nice that we at least rotate the kind of mayhem that we have on the show. But
yeah.
We are thrilled you're here, and we love you bunches. And please remember to check us out Friday and Saturday nights on TFR Live at 10 p.m. Pacific time. We will be live doing the show. I'll be doing it on Friday, and Don will be joining me on Saturday night.
There you go.
So we will be here. Hopefully you will be there as well. So love you bunches. Take care. Be good to each other, and we will see quite soon, I'm sure.
In a few days.
And make sure to spread the word. We want people liking and subscribing our channel. And check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio.
There you go.
All right. See you guys later. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Friday night.
Friday, Saturday.
Woo.
Bye.